Lee, mate, go on then. What does this bill mean? The judge blocking government agencies. What does it mean, Lee? Is it good?
This was an extraordinary move yesterday on 4th of July. Typically, a federal judge does not issue any decision or major act on a federal holiday. It was, 4th of July. But Judge Doherty in Louisiana issued a sweeping injunction temporarily blocking the federal government, the White House, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, CDC, and other agencies from coercing social media companies on content-related decisions, basically arguing that the evidence that's been accumulated by the Missouri government and other plaintiffs demonstrates that the government has violated the First Amendment, the free speech rights of Americans, by coercing content takedowns and other censorship-like decisions on, stories around COVID, around the efficacies of masks and the vaccine, the lab leak theory, around election-related communications going into the 2020 election. A lot of this was not just demonstrated by the plaintiffs in this case, but further confirmed by reporting and, of course, the Twitter files. A lot of emails and documents just kind of reaffirm all the arguments made in this case that was filed last summer. It's moving ahead in the federal courts. I think it's likely that the Biden administration appeals this decision to the appellate court, maybe even reaches the Supreme Court. This could be the next big decision, really just regulating and deciding what is the appropriate barrier for the federal government. When can the federal government intervene in speech and political discourse? It could be very big for America.
It seems, as you say, apposite and encouraging that this took place on Independence Day. Symbolic, yes. Also, I'd not thought of it in quite those terms. For this temporary measure to be taken, there must be demonstrable evidence that there have already been violations. So people that felt that their free speech was being violated were right. If you felt that you were censored on social media, guys, let us know. Press the red button now. Join us over on Locals and let us know how you feel your free speech was affected during the pandemic period with regard to these particular issues, and if you feel encouraged by this legislation. Lee, mate, I spoke to Jack Dorsey. It's an interview that we're putting out tomorrow. It was a fantastic conversation. He said that he regrets banning Trump, that it was good for the company, bad for the country. Based on the title of your book, I assume you're sort of, broadly speaking, a liberal person. What do you think about Jack Dorsey's stance, given that he was the person that was in charge during the period that's being investigated and sort of, I suppose, revealed during the Twitter files? What's your take on him saying that, mate?
No, I think that's interesting. I'd love to see that interview. For all of these issues, whether it's decisions on major speech platforms, Twitter, Facebook, these are kind of the public square of our current age. This is how people interact and protest and criticize the government and share information. We either have to have very clear rules or equally applied rules. When you look at the way that Twitter applies its supposed rules on presidents and prime ministers around the world, we've had, political leaders in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East engage in provocative commentary, calls for violence, ethnic targeting. We don't see Twitter kicking other prime ministers and leaders off the platform. But, for Twitter in particular, there was a focus on Trump, in part because of perhaps pressure from various federal agencies, but also just the kind of inconsistent and strange black box that is the kind of censorship decision-making. You have a lot of employees in a place like San Francisco. Many of them might lean Democrat or more liberal, and they don't like Trump. And they kind of make these arbitrary decisions, even if they're not fully consistent with how they're applied worldwide. And it leads to less faith in these platforms. And, it's why I think Americans have retracted from established media and have a lot of fear around the big tech companies. They have a lot of power, and it's not clear how they justify or use that power. I'm not the biggest fan of Trump or many of his policies, but I believe in a free and open society. He was a former president. He has a right to communicate with Americans. It's very dangerous and a slippery slope to start just arbitrarily banning political leaders from the public square.
Stay free with Russell Brand. See it first on Rumble.